Welcome to Black Art is Lit. I'm your host, Nykieria Chaney, and this week we're reading Burn Down Master's House by Clay Kane. Now, I can tell you in the literary world, this is one of those hotly anticipated novels for 2026, but not just because of the title, but because of the content and what it goes into, and a little bit more about Clay Kane. He is not just some new author. Clay Kane is a well-known journalist. He's a commentator and a cultural critic that has publicly spoke out about race and power structure for years. He has specifically talked about how it's not just about race, but it's about centering structural power over individual prejudice. And he also has done a lot of talk repeatedly about historical erasure. What does it look like when you're being erased in mainstream, taking information out of books and no longer telling them or teaching children information about their history? So Clay Kane has definitely been very vocal over the years in talking about just media distortion and narrative manipulation. So when he sat down and said that he's going to be releasing this book, Burn Down Master's House, the literary world took notice. So, with this, I don't need to do an introduction because Clay has written a wonderful introduction into the book. So, without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Amid the smoke and turmoil of a divided nation, another fire steers, one lit by the enslaved. Their rebellions are quiet at times, explosive at others, but never mere resistance. This is outright opposition. When the flames come, justice will rise with them. Luke, quick witted and perceptive, and Henry, a man of strong and defiant spirit, forged an unbreakable bond at a Virginia plantation called Magnolia Row. Both seek escape from unimaginable cruelty, and sure as the fires of hell, they will leave their mark, sparking future uprising and rebels, like Josephine, a young and observant girl who wields silence as her greatest weapon. She listens, watches, waits. Her vow is clear. They gonna remember us. Then there's Charity, Butler, who has successfully fought for her freedom, but battles against a deeply unjust system and a future abolitionist. Lastly, Nathaniel, a black enslaver whose existence disturbs the very nature of bondage. His rule is both fragile and contradictory, a symbol of betrayal and retribution within the system of slavery. Inspired by the true stories of the profoundly courageous men and women who dared to fight back, Burn Down Master's House is a singular true de force of a novel, breathtaking in scope, compassion, righteousness, and timely defiance. Misinformation is an old, strong tool. It distorts history, manipulates narratives, and fuels power. Misinformation makes it possible to win elections, spark wars, and turn neighbors into enemies with the stroke of a pen or a simple click. The danger of being misled is more than ignorance. It's political and social vulnerability. A society untethered from truth can easily be controlled, its people divided by lies, while the oligarchs consolidate their control. As Alexander Nix, former CEO of Cambridge Analytica, said in 2018, it doesn't necessarily need to be true as long as they're believed. Misinformation campaigns aren't just careful mistakes. They're surgical strikes against our ability to see how these systems' legacies infect our world. Truth and fact are ultimately what make collective opposition possible. If people are swayed to believe resistance is hopeless, they'll surrender before the battle even begins. But once they learn of others who have resisted and won, the idea of rebellion transforms from a fantasy into a possibility. Just as contemporary believers of misinformation work tirelessly to keep others in ignorance, enslavers once strove to prevent the enslaved from learning of successful revolts that might embolden them. There is a power in retelling story of liberation. When a society reclaims its past, when it knows that rebellion has happened and can happen again, It steps closer to building a future in which oppressive systems can be undone. Remembering is an act of brilliant opposition. America's new Civil War is being fought on the battlefield of media. And more than 160 years after the abolition of slavery, the nation's greatest sin remains a central target. The claims that U.S. chattel slavery based on race was a necessary evil or it somehow benefited the enslaved people aren't just distortions of the past. They are tactics of erasure in the present. They shape how we see ourselves, see one another, and decide who is worthy of opportunity and dignity. These distortions don't just remain in rhetoric. They often result in policy. They appear in executive orders to rewrite the 14th Amendment, eroding the foundation of citizenship and equality. They manifest in state laws designed to suppress voting rights, restrict the teaching of Black history, and roll back protections for marginalized communities. Enter rapper Kanye West. In 2018, Kanye West proclaimed, "When you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice." As if that weren't horrifying enough, in 2019, he said during a performance at Howard University, one of the most revered historically Black colleges in America, "If they throw in slave nets again, how about we don't all stand in the same place?" West, a fully grown, ignorant man-child, echoed the lost cause narrative that emerged immediately after the Civil War, a rewrite of history meant to glorify the Confederacy and romanticize the antebellum South. This narrative painted enslaved people as content and their enslavers as benevolent, conveniently downplaying the inhumanity of slavery. It's the same myth perpetuated by films like 1915's The Birth of a Nation and 1939's Gone with the Wind. Movies that poisoned generations of Americans' understanding of slavery as something less evil than it was. Hearing such rhetoric from a Black man in the 21st century was nothing short of abominable. Scholars like W.B. Du Bois, Marion Thompson Wright, Lawrence Otis Graham, Julius E. Thompson, and LaRon Bennett Jr. were turning in their graves. But it's not just Kanye. Another favorite tactic to downplay the horrors of American slavery is the tired refrain that slavery existed elsewhere, parroted by everyone from Condoleezza Rice to comedian Bill Maher. This conveniently ignores the distinct brutality of race-based chattel slavery practiced in Americas. Yes, slavery existed worldwide, even in ancient Africa, but not slavery based on race. While African kingdoms engaged in forms of servitude, those systems did not hinge on the permanent dehumanization of an entire race. In African society, enslaved individuals were often captured through warfare, but they were not enslaved for life or treated as property in the same way as chattel slavery dictated. Enslaved people in Africa were typically reintegrated into society over time, and their children were not born into bondage. In contrast, European chattel slavery commodified human beings, binding them and their descendants into a legacy of slavery based on the color of their skin. Yes, Africans did sell other Africans into slavery, but let's not pretend they had any way of knowing what awaited those sold into the so-called New World. There were no social media alerts, no breaking news segments, or trackers warning of race-based slavery ahead. A lifetime of bondage tied to skin color wasn't their idea. It was a uniquely European reinvention, a horrifying twist on human exploitation that forever altered the course of history. By the 1860s, the United States had perfected this cruel system, becoming the most profitable engine of slavery in the modern world, where generations of Black Americans were bred and traded like livestock. This context makes dismissive comparisons not only disingenuous, but an attempt to absolve America of its singular, unique monstrosity. For over 160 years, there has been this unrelenting campaign to remix the history of slavery, finding its way into mainstream thought and education. Therefore, storytelling and truth-telling are never ending. When I told a friend my next book would focus on slavery, he sighed and said, "Another slavery story?" I understood his reaction. For many Black Americans, the subject of slavery feels like a wound too infected to touch. especially when much of what exists in popular culture is created through the lens of white storytellers. These works often dive into torture porn, masquerading as art, reducing Black suffering to little more than shock value. Yet, after finishing the book, he admitted, this is not just another slavery story. His initial dismissal had almost stopped him from engaging with the profound human narrative. On the other end of the spectrum, there are those, like certain lawmakers, who do not want another slavery story, but for the very different reasons. They argue that these stories make white children feel bad about the color of their skin. But let's be clear. In Germany, there is no glorification of the Nazis or the Holocaust. Schools aren't named after Nazi generals, and German children are taught this chapter of their history from a young age so they understand the importance of never repeating it. The problem isn't the stories of slavery. It's the discomfort they cause in those unwilling to confront the truth. The urgency of these stories has only grown. In July 2023, Florida's Black History curriculum included an audacious claim that slaves developed skills that could be used for personal benefit. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis proudly defended the curriculum, calling it the most robust standards in African American history. In December 2023, Republican presidential candidate Namarada Nikki Haley refused to acknowledge that the Civil War was fought over slavery. In April 2025, Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves once again declared April as Confederate Heritage Month. These are not isolated incidents. They are part of a campaign to erase Black history and sanitize the realities of America's past. We've also seen efforts to suppress these stories in education, with lawmakers arguing that they create division or promote wokeness. But these stories are not divisive. They are clarifying. They force us to reckon with who we are and where we come from. They threaten the comforting myths of equality and fairness many would prefer to believe. Perhaps, just perhaps, the real fear isn't Black and brown people knowing their history, it's young white children being inspired. The possibility that they might see themselves not in the oppressors but in the rebels, the freedom fighters, the ones who dare to demand a better, more just world. That's why this novel is for everyone. A story not confined to race or ancestry but rooted in the universal struggle. Slavery isn't just a story of brutality, it's a story of resistance and opposition. This discomfort isn't about history itself. It's about what forces us to acknowledge that we are still grappling with a system built on the subjugation of Black and brown bodies, not just admitting that slavery existed, but refusing to see the humanity of those who survived it. Slavery didn't end because President Abraham Lincoln had a profound love for Black people. The 16th president cared only about preserving the Union. Slavery as an institution began to die on paper because the enslaved people said no more and the country had no choice. Quote Whitney Houston, "I love it when they have no choice. That's why I wrote Burn Down Master's House." Every main character was inspired by real people whose names history has forgotten, but whose spirits deserve to be remembered. There were two Josephines, one in Maryland and one in Mississippi, who poisoned their owners. I took their stories and reimagined them. Luke and Henry were enslaved men who endured horrific sexual violence. I give them love where history gave them pain. Charity Butler resisted slavery through the courts, only to have her life destroyed by Thaddeus Stevens, a man who would later become a leading abolitionist. Her story is a reminder of how allies can uphold systems of oppression. And then there is a deeply unsettling tale of the Black enslaver, a man whose actions ignited an uprising. Those stories are interconnected, not just to recount history, but to explore the complexities of identity and power. Yes, this book will make you uncomfortable, but discomfort is the extravagant price of truth. These are not sanitized tales. The characters teach us to remember and to hope. There is no one way to resist. It's a spectrum. In these trying political and cultural times, Burn Down Master's House is my literary opposition against those who would erase the truth. And maybe there's a house in your life you need to burn. Chains holding you back. Something keeping you from your own freedom. This book isn't just a reckoning with history. It's a call to action, to confront, to break free, to build something new from the ashes. Chapter 1, Luke and Henry. I have been dragged down to the lowest depths of human degradation and wretchedness by slaveholders, which I consider to be too vulgar to be written. The cabin was beaten down by humiliation and despair, infesting every corner of the cage space. The filth was stitched into the walls, into the hay-strewn dirt floor, into the rusted hinges of the door that never closed all the way. The cramped room was a sweatbox and a stage all at once. "Please, Henry, just do it," Susie begged. She sat hunched on the floor, clutching the remains of a blanket to her bare chest, her eyes pleading with him more than her words ever could. Henry's body betrayed him, as it always had in moments like this. He hated himself for the way he went limp, the way the thought of touching Susie, of giving the master what he wanted, felt like a death that he couldn't bear. Susie sighed with unsympathetic frustration. "Why can't you just give me some babies, like Master said? You know what'll happen if you don't." Henry stared at her. Susie was the oldest girl on the plantation, who hadn't birthed any property, and he was the lone man who hadn't fathered any field hands. They were nothing more, failed machines in an apparatus that demanded that they work, produce, and abide. Susie blamed the African in his blood for what she saw as stubbornness. Henry sat back, his hands resting on his knees, his broad shoulders slumping. "Think I don't know," he said. "Think I don't know what happens when they don't get what they want? But it ain't just about babies, Susie. We not making no children here. We making slaves." Susie whipped her head around. "And what you think happens to me if we don't? He gonna sell me, Henry. Sell me someplace worse. You think it's bad here? We don't go hungry. Whippings ain't every day. You don't know bad." Susie was right. He had heard the horror stories. Masters who tormented with glee. Plantations where survival wasn't just painful but near impossible. Henry, still a young man, had been on several plantations over his years, yet this one stretched the longest. In all his time in this strange land, 5 years or so, there were no degrees of benevolence among any owner. Some used the lash more, some used the lash less, but all were orchestrators of terror, soulless hacks who patted their own backs for handing out an extra biscuit, as if that made them one of the good ones. There were no good ones, no redemptive qualities. They were all sick as the first white hand that touched the shores of the Gold Coast, rot fermented in human skin. And now, every part of Henry shrunk from what was being demanded of him. It wasn't Susie. He thought she was beautiful, even more so than she believed herself to be. He pushed to try again. He could feel Susie watching him. He touched her where life begins. His blood pulsed through him in starts and stops, refusing to flow as it should. His body was caught in trickery, stuck between instinct and rejection. Henry willed himself to feel something, anything. The act itself, the thought of pretending to be a man who could breed, was a lie his body couldn't perform. "I can't, Susie," he said with defeat. "You can't or you won't," she spat. "I ain't good enough for you. Too black, too ugly. You can't even look at me." She turned her face away, biting her lip to stop it from quivering. "You think this is you?" Henry replied quickly. "But no, I can't explain it." She stared at him as a thought crossed her mind. "Parts don't even work, do they?" she hissed. "You ain't a man at all." The door kicked open before Henry could say another word. Master's pink, portly face was warped with anger. Susie screamed, yanking the blanket up to cover herself. 15 minutes I've been outside," he barked. "You ain't done a damn thing. You gonna get in that girl or I'm selling you tomorrow, you hear me?" Master ripped away Susie's blanket. "And I'm watching. Do it now." "Please, Henry," Susie whispered, her voice shaking. "Please, just do it." Henry couldn't move. His body locked, every muscle tense to prevent him from lunging at Master and sealing his own doom. He sat motionless, even as Master struck him across the face and making him taste blood. "Worthless," he snarled. "You going to Magnolia Road tomorrow, meanest damn plantation in Goochland. They'll beat the devil out of you. Had Mr. Raglan come round looking at you, and you too dim-witted to even notice. You a leak in my pocket, more trouble than you're worth." He turned to Susie. "You staying, but you better find someone who's gonna be able to do what he couldn't. Are you next?" As Master stormed out, Susie burst into sobs, curling into a fetal position on the floor. Henry didn't move. He was deadpan, egged with shame, anger, and helplessness. all of it torpedoed inside of him. The sun blazed as Henry sat in the back of the buck wagon, hands bound by tattered ropes. He didn't understand why they tied him up. He had left without struggle. Susie watched the wagon pull away. Slight relief crossed her face. Her burden was finally gone, but she also felt a sadness. Henry was kind. He was a shield in his own way, a reminder that pushback, no matter how small, still had a place here. His tale of his homeland, his obsession with stories of a place called Haiti. She couldn't decide if she was mourning his absence or dreading what it meant for her future. She wiped a tear away angrily. There was no time for emotion. Not here, not now. Master was determined to make a lesson out of Henry, a warning to the others who didn't produce. Yet Henry paid no mind to the winks and waves from the souls he seemed to befriend. There were no friends or loves. He showed no sign of hurt as he sat upright in the back of the wagon, eyes glinting like a panther in repose. His thoughts were already far beyond the fields. His vengeance would one day shake Virginia. The old master sold off his trouble, thinking distance would cool the flames. Henry let himself slump against the wagon bed as it rolled forward, his face turned toward the sun. He glared with unblinking eyes as the heat seared his dark skin. Let it burn, Henry thought. Henry was mourning. The land he once knew was dissolving flash. Although he could still chant prayers, Henry could no longer remember his true name. Forgotten somewhere in the murky waters of time and grief, his age was somewhere in his late teens, though he couldn't be sure. Memories felt distant, but one imprint stained him. The pale men came with fire, their hands eager to snatch up all that breathed. His village burned, the air permeated with the stink of conquest. His father fought like a king, roaring against guns and steel, but his mother's voice rang in his ears, her screams piercing the chaos, shouting for her children to run. His sisters and brothers fled, their feet pounding the dirt, but Henry could not move. He was moored to his mother. Peering from behind a tree, he saw them grab her, throw her down with a force that shifted the ground. His mother's cries turned raw as she struggled. Henry wanted to fight, but there were too many, too strong. They grabbed her by the skull and slammed her head against a rock. The crack of bone reverberated in his ears as her once beautiful face shattered against the stone. Each blow splintered the image of her in his mind, her features crumbling. Henry could have fled, but he couldn't leave her at his own peril. He walked to her body. Her blood seeped into the earth. The rock was jagged and indifferent. It had taken her last breath, just as the pale men had taken everything else, yet he stayed. His little boy hands trembled, reaching for her as though he could pull her back, as though his touch might bring life into her broken body. His heart burst open. Not the slow, steady crack of erosion, but the violent shatter of something scared. Then they came for him, wrenched him away. He didn't scream. He had no sound left, no voice to give, a kaleidoscope of loss. Vast waters, the Khan that swallowed villages and spit out spirits, churned in his mind. The floating tomb where his body survived, but his soul imploded. The countless masters where his body stayed there, their savagery like armor, each one carving new scars in their rebellions. His rebellions, fierce, unapologetic, but always costly. He remembered the small, everyday uprisings, stealing an hour of extra sleep, letting a tool fall too hard, or staring at an overseer a moment too long. There was also folklore. The stories danced through the hull of the slave ship on that terrible passage from Africa to Virginia. Captives who rose up mid-voyage and pitched the crew overboard, and Haitians who burned their masters' fields. Those stories insisted fighting back was always an option, even when it meant risking everything. Still, all of it blurred now, like images through smoke. Only two things burned sharp and clear, his mother's eyes wide with pain and love as her body broke. And the flames, always the flames. They licked in the corners of his vision. Fire had taken his village and left him with the unsatisfying taste of survival. Flames consumed everything and became the only thing that he could trust. The wagon meandered down a serpentine road, and then, like a revelation, Magnolia Road appeared. An endless ocean of cotton fields and bondage. Henry had never seen a plantation so immense. The plantations he endured before had been small, scarcely housing no more than a handful of souls. As they drew closer, he saw solemn faces and felt their quiet energy. They moved like phantoms, shells of memory. The ride to the big house was distant, many steps from the fields. On larger plantation, the shacks were far from the big house. This devil doesn't want to see his work up close, Henry mused. The big house loomed like a monument to permanence. Its stark white exterior gleamed unnaturally, a menacing perfection. Two imposing levels rose with supremacy, crowned by a roof that jutted sharply against the sky. Massive pillars lined the front, their smooth surfaces lending the house an almost temple-like quality. Expansive, unblinking windows punctuated the facade, their dark panes like watchful eyes surveying the fields and forests beyond. The symmetry of the house was perfect, each line too exact and each corner too sharp. The wagon stumbled along the closer they drew. The more Henry could feel authority pressing down on him as if worship were required. The porch stretched the entire width of the house, its wooden boards painted in the same glaring white. Rocking chairs sat perfectly still, though they were less for comfort and more like spies keeping watch. In the distance, Henry noticed a tall figure standing at the center of it all. He exuded a presence that matched the house itself, judgment and sadism. He wore high boots and overalls that hung loose on his bony frame. His thinning dark hair clung stubbornly to the sides of his head, leaving a bald, shiny crown. A long pointed nose poured from his face, matched by unnaturally angular ears. His skin was ruddy and blotchy, the angry redness crawling across his face and neck. His eyes were pale and cold. He didn't just look at Henry, he dissected him. Henry was ordered to sit up taller by the driver. This was not a place where mercy lived, he realized. This was a place that devoured you whole. Here he is, Mr. Raglan. Henry, the driver called. Halting the horses, Henry was pulled out of the wagon while Mr. Raglan stood on the top step of the porch. I see, Mr. Raglan said in a raspy growl. He eyed Henry from his head down to his bare feet. Listen, boy, Mr. Raglan began. Heard plenty about you. Only brought you because you was cheap to be so young. We run a tight ship round here. No one asks questions, and the work gets done. I done broken the toughest of y'all, but if you reckon you can try something different, just know I ain't got no qualms about cutting my losses. You only cost me $300, and I done paid more from witches. There's a river beyond them woods. Mr. Raglan pointed to a wooden area. That's been the grave for many fools. Got it? Henry nodded. Ruby, Mr. Raglan shouted. She appeared almost instantly through the door to the big house. Yes, sir. She was a medium-sized woman, wrapped in a long cloth dress with a bandana tightened around her head. But there was something distinctive about Ruby's red skin and the kinky burgundy hair that peeked through her bandana. Henry knew she was black, but she was a shade of black that he had never seen. Clinging to Ruby's side, half hidden by the folds of her dress, was a little girl no older than 14. Her curious eyes darted between Mr. Raglan and Henry. Her dark brown skin was smooth, unblemished, and radiant against the backdrop of Ruby's fiery complexion. She stayed pressed against Ruby as her eyes stared at Henry. Take this boy Henry to the fields, Mr. Raglan ordered. Yes, sir. Ruby walked off the porch and grabbed Henry by his arms as his hands were tied behind his back. They slowly walked away with the little girl following them. God damn it, Ruby, untie him. Be sundown by the time you make it to the fields. Don't you ever get any smarts? He gestured impatiently toward the girl. And why Josephine always following you? You teaching her how to cook yet? Without looking up, Ruby called over her shoulder. She learned to cook when she's ready. Can't rush good health, Mr. Raglan. You know that better than anyone. Mr. Raglan squinted at her, but couldn't grasp the subtle edge in her words. Well, make sure she's not just lollygagging. Ruby turned to Henry, untying his hands, then mumbled under her breath. Well, I was about to untie him, you beat-faced rascal, but I just knew you'd go yelling. Don't you dare untie that boy while I'm standing right here. One day Jesus is gonna do away with that man. Cut his throat while he's snoring louder than a hog at a trough. Henry's mouth dropped as Ruby spun him to face her. He had never heard an enslaved black woman talk so ferociously about their master. Henry harbored those thoughts only in his mind, never dared to say them out loud. Why you looking at me like that? Ruby didn't give him time to respond. I say what I want. Ain't holding back just 'cause you knew. Now get to walking, for that devil starts yelling that we ain't moving fast enough. Henry nodded as Ruby and Josephine set off on a long trek to the fields. They passed the gin house first, its presence casting a shadow over the land. Beyond the gin house lay the rows of cotton, the white tufts bobbing gently in the wind. Souls moved silently, their bodies weary, their faces downward, hands working, plucking the cotton and stuffing into baskets strapped to their hips. Some led mules that pulled carts laden with the day's harbor. The white overseer, a hulking figure with a face as red as the setting sun, stalked the roads, his eyes on the workers, a rifle slung too comfortably at his side with a whip in one hand. The walk was punishing, the suffocating heat pressing down. Ruby could feel the eyes of the souls on them, a few nods in her direction and eyes on Henry, fleeting glances that quickly turned away. The grip of Magnolia Row was inescapable. "This is it," Ruby said, with Josephine still clutching her as they entered a doorless log hut. The floor was damp earth, with several blankets scattered around the single large room. The smell was jarring, reeking of urine, feces, and other aggressive odors. "You got about 10 folks in here, but they always busy working right now. You meet them later on. Work starts at sunup, small break at high noon, and don't stop till sundown. We're going right back to the fields now, so be sure to remember how to get back. Mr. Ragland don't like anybody wandering." Henry took in his new home. He already missed his cabin with Susie. At least Susie and I had a wood floor, and only 2 others breathing up the air, Henry thought. Ruby's eyes narrowed slightly, curious why he hadn't said a word. "Ain't much, but it's all you got now." Her tone slightly softened. "You learn to keep your head down, Henry. That's how folks survive here." "Where you stay?" Henry asked. Relief hit Ruby's face. "Sweet Jesus, you talk." Henry felt a pinch of anxiety. He never knew how the remains of his accent would land, and if it would give away pieces of his past he tried to hide. Direct connections to Africa were not celebrated in places like Goochland. Ruby caught the worry in his eyes, instantly regretting her quick mouth. "Well, best you stay quiet. Keep you out of trouble." She gave a soft smile. "I got a shack out back of the big house. Josephine's staying there with me. Always work to do." Curiosity tugged at him. "You work in the house?" Ruby nodded slowly, stepping into the sun with Josephine hanging onto her dress and motioning for him to follow. She nodded. "Only reason is because my mama used to work in that house. Before she got sold off back when I was so little, I can't even remember her face." Ruby let out a dry, humorless laugh. "But don't think it's all pretty. Ain't no kindness in it. Ain't no safety." She turned to face him hard and direct. "Working in that house means you pay your dues in different ways, but you learn how to move so they don't see you too much, and you make it through another day. That's what I do. That's what my baby girl Josephine do." Ruby looked down at Josephine and smiled. Henry glanced at Josephine, who was still at Ruby's side. "Still your child?" Ruby shook her head, her smile fading. "I ain't her mama, but I might as well be. Her mama died giving birth to her. I've been taking care of her ever since she drew her first breath. Nobody else gonna look out for her like I do." Josephine peeked out at Henry for the briefest moment before looking away. Henry watched her. She talked? Ruby chuckled softly. "Not right now," she said, "but she will when she's ready. My Josephine's got a lot to say. Just need the right time for it to come out." Henry's eyes remained on Josephine, noting the intensity in her dark eyes and the way she clung to Ruby as if she was her entire world. She wasn't just shy, she was waiting, Henry thought. Waiting and watching, taking it all in, as if she were storing it all away for a moment she could see coming. "Come on," Ruby said to Henry, "time to work. Son ain't waiting for nobody, and neither is Mr. Ragland." Henry was put to work immediately. The soles were draped in toe cloth, shirts hanging like sacks down to the ankles, while a few men stood bare-chested, their tattered trousers stuck to them like a second skin. The sight of their backs, necks, and chests crisscrossed with the scars of whippings and brandings. Those etchings were a mirror of his own. He was ordered to break up and turn their soul. The plow tools were rusted and dull. What would have taken Henry a single sweep at the previous plantation now demanded 3 times the effort, each motion a struggle against the dirt. Then there was the oppressive silence of the fields. No voices rose. No songs drifted in the air, only the occasional crack of the overseer's whip. By the time the sun sank, Henry was delirious with exhaustion. His limbs trembled and his hands were raw from the day's labor. Yet he felt a small spark of relief at the thought of food, however meager. He followed the others, their silent procession leading to the center of the quarters where the evening sparse meal was handed out. An old woman stood at the makeshift table, her hands unsteady as she doled out the portions. When she dropped a small lump of cornmeal into Henry's outstretched hand, he stared at her with disappointment. The grainy mound mocked his hunger, his stomach growling loudly in protest. Henry needed meat, anything substantial. He was starving. "What you want?" Her voice was sharp but tired. "A feast? Eat or don't, but move on. Ain't no more for you." Henry pushed down his frustrations, stepping aside to let the others behind him take their portions. As he turned, two men approached. They were near enough in age, their faces were marked by overtiredness and frames stocked with abnormal muscle from work. One of them, the taller of the two, spoke first, his tone laced with sarcasm. "You the new one, Ruby Barden, huh? Thought you'd be bigger," the way she was talking. "Bigger?" Henry questioned. The other man snorted. "Don't mind Solomon," he said, jerking his head toward the taller man. He liked to size folks up, thinks he can tell what a man's about just by looking. His eyes lingered on the rawness of Henry's hand. "Guess we're gonna see soon enough." Solomon smirked, and for a moment, Henry was struck by his gray eyes, stormy like the sky before rainfall. "Where you come from?" he asked, his tone casual but probing. "You don't look like you from round here." Henry hesitated, the pitiful lump of cornmeal in his hand. "Don't matter much where I'm from now." Solomon turned to his friend. "Got a sharp tongue, don't he, David?" David shook his head. "Let the man eat, Solomon. He's just trying to figure things out, same as anyone else." He turned to Henry. "Name's David. That one's Solomon. Don't take nothing personal." "Henry," he said simply. Solomon gave a slow nod. "Well, Henry, guess we gonna see if you can keep up. We don't take too calmly to slackers." David shot Solomon a warning look, but said nothing more. The two men moved on. Their sarcasm felt less like hostility and more of a test, as if they were trying to figure out where he fit in the structure of this place. Henry looked down at the cornmeal in the palm of his hand, his stomach growling again. With a sigh, he shoved the grainy lump into his mouth and chewed slowly, forcing himself to swallow. Still hungry, Henry returned to the sweltering shack, overcrowded with men and women packed together on the dirt floor, sharing old blankets. Most were already asleep, their exhaustion heavier than their hunger. A few coughed and wheezed in the darkness. As Henry tiptoed to an empty space, he caught snippets of conversation. Someone murmured that the next day was the Sabbath, which thankfully meant no work. Church service would be held in the barn. Henry didn't care much for preacher men, but the thought of escaping the suffocating cabin, even for a few hours, was enough to convince him. He would be at the service, if only to see what kind of salvation they could offer. Squeezed into a corner on the dirt floor, Henry's throat bit against the cabin's cinch. He adjusted his position, his eyes slowly acclimating to the glow of moonlight that seeped through the cracks in the wooden wall. Above him, the ceiling was filled with spiders, mosquitoes, and other unfriendly critters. Nearby, he briefly locked eyes with David and Solomon, sprawled shirtless on the dirt floor. In the moonlight, their frames looked both imposing and vulnerable. David was deadpan, but Solomon's gray eyes held curiosity. Solomon nodded. The moment passed as quickly as it had come. As Henry lay back staring at the ceiling, a pink-colored snake slithered by his face on the dirt floor. He didn't flinch. Moving swiftly, he grabbed the snake. Solomon's eyes followed the scene as he saw Henry squeeze the reptile with his black hand. The pink serpent fought for his life until it finally went limp in his grip. Solomon watched as Henry released it, tossing the lifeless body aside. He's not like the others, Solomon thought. Henry tried to rest, but his mind raced, regretting his constant disobedience at the last plantation. In the act of stubborn courage, he couldn't fathom the cost. Susie's face was in his mind. He wished he could have performed, ate that he was not what she needed. He wondered how she was now. Did Master take out his anger on her the moment Henry was gone? Did she sit curled in that shack, weeping for herself or for him? Or had she stilled herself as she always did, cloaking her pain behind a wall of anger? The thought of her suffering hurt him. suffering that he might have spared her if only he had been different. Tears streamed down his face as he began to sob, his voice breaking into a prayer of his mother's name in his native tongue. Around him, the shack echoed with the sound of others' tears, a dreadful lullaby. The next day, Henry trailed behind a small group toward the barn, where the rafters were half buckled and cracked lanterns lay in the corner. The preacher, another field hand draped in the guise of holiness, launched into his typical sermon. His palms cupped a tattered Bible as he stood atop a crate and ranted about salvation. "Brothers and sisters," he cried, "ain't no man or woman so broken the Lord's word can't fix 'em." Heads bobbled in agreement with amens and yes lords. The souls were seeking comfort for anyone or anything. "We must keep our eyes on his promise," the preacher insisted, "for he will deliver us in his own time." Henry stood in the back, hands in his pockets. He heard the preacher's voice and knew each line by heart. He listened to this sermon, or one just like it, more times than he could count. All that holy talk about waiting on heaven's reward never reached him, not in the way it inspired others. Their swaying bodies and lifted hands only reminded him how easily folks could be lulled into hope. Henry wanted purification by fire in the here and now, not faraway promise from a book. He flexed his shoulders and exhaled as the preacher got more animated, jumping and shouting with tears. Henry couldn't take it any longer. He had his fill of Jesus and the Sabbath, enough of waiting for a sign that never came. As Henry emerged from the barn, he saw Ruby perched on a stool, her lively conversation with a tall young man catching his eye. He was a stark contrast to most others, still rough around the edges but wore knee-high boots, a shirt that wasn't torn, and his face, though not immaculate, was relatively clean. Henry hoped Ruby would introduce him. "Hey now, where you headed? Don't you like Jesus? You might end up in hell if you don't listen to Preacher Man." Ruby's hearty voice rang out, mingling with the young man's laughter. Henry continued walking, hoping Ruby might call out to him again. "Don't you hear me talking?" Henry turned around. "I hear you," he said. "What'd you say your name was again?" "Henry." "Well, if you forgot, and I don't know how you would, I'm Ruby, and this here is Luke." Luke laughed at Ruby and extended his hand. Henry was taken aback. He couldn't remember someone shaking his hand. "Nice to meet you," Luke said with a nod, as Henry felt his palm and fingers. "Why your hands soft like that?" Henry asked, the question escaping before he could catch it. Even his accent slipped out. Ruby erupted into a cackle, nearly toppling from her stool. "They should call you Soft Luke, hands soft as cotton." Luke ignored Henry's question and asked, "Why do you talk like that?" Henry cramped up, always uncomfortable when his accent showed up uninvited. "Yeah, you talk a little different," Ruby added. "I'm from Africa." "Africa?" Ruby exclaimed. "We are all from Africa," Luke nodded. Henry stared back at Luke, appreciating his acknowledgement of their roots. "I ain't from Africa," Ruby said. "Yes, you are, Ruby," Luke insisted. "Unless you're telling me God built you separate from Eve." Ruby laughed as Luke looked down at Josephine, who pulled at his hand. She was crouched in the dirt, her little fingers holding a stick as she drew lines and shapes. He pointed at the ground. "Now make 3 more, just like that one." Josephine obeyed, her tongue peeking out slightly as she concentrated, carefully scratching out another set of matching lines. Henry tilted his head, puzzled. Luke wasn't just talking to her, he was teaching her. "What's she doing?" Henry asked. "I'm showing her how to do her numbers," he said, turning back to Josephine. "Good, now add 2 more. How many does that make?" Josephine looked up at him for reassurance before scratching out 2 more lines. She paused, then wrote out a 7. Luke nodded approvingly. "That's right, 7, Josephine beamed. "See, nobody can take that from you. Don't let them take what they can't touch." Henry's brow furrowed. "You teaching her numbers?" Luke shot a look at Ruby before answering, questioning if he could trust Henry. "It's no harm in knowing how to count. It'll be something she needs one day." Ruby chimed in. "He's good with that kind of thing. Been showing her little by little when there's time. My Josephine's sharp. Pick up things faster than most." Henry stared at Josephine, who had gone back to her drawing, adding more lines and shapes. He couldn't hide his surprise. "Didn't think we could learn that kind of thing." Luke straightened slightly. "We can learn plenty," he said. "We just need to make sure the right people don't see." Ruby gave a small smile, her eyes on Josephine. She's gonna learn more than just numbers if I got anything to do with it. This girl ain't just gonna survive, she's gonna know how to think. How did you learn? Henry asked Luke. Well, Ruby interjected. Luke didn't work in the fields, he works in the house. That's why he don't talk like all of us. Ruby, Luke snapped. Why are you always speaking for somebody? I can speak for myself. I know how you get when Junior come up. Just wanted you to get to the point, Ruby said with a wink and turned back to Henry. But don't you think he's got an easy life? Who's Junior? Henry quizzed. The Princess of Magnolia Row, Ruby laughed. Junior is Mr. Raglan's son, Luke said with a sigh. Ruby, you always have to mock something. Ruby turned to Henry as if Luke had vanished. See, Luke's been Junior's slave since he was a child. Luke knows how to read, write, and ain't never been hungry. Ruby, I wish you stopped running your mouth about all my business. There are plenty of folks who already hate me on Magnolia Row. Don't nobody hate you, Luke. They just want to be you. I have to get back to the house. Junior's waiting on me. Nice meeting you, Henry. Don't pay too much mind to Ruby. She'll have you in a heap of trouble in no time. Luke offered a nod and gave Josephine a kiss goodbye on the forehead. Henry watched him walk away. There was something in the way he moved, a dignity that was impervious to the fragility of their lives. He reminded him of the certainty of the boys from his village, the way they stepped on slippery rocks with assuredness. That same aura surrounded Luke. That boy's as touchy as a hive of bees, Ruby said, shaking her head. You doing all right? Never all right, Henry replied. Lord, you're going to be one of them? Not too excited about being in a new place. Ruby stood from her stool and fixed him with a stare. Although they were around the same age, her wisdom bore down on him. You listen up, she said. This here's all you got. Don't matter what you had before or what you thought you deserved. This, she gestured to the dusty fields and sagging cabins of Magnolia Row. This is it. So you best to make something of it. Ain't no point in dreaming about what ain't gonna be. Henry looked about frowning. Don't you go making Magnolia Row a hotter hell than it already is. That fire burns up everything around you. Ruby turned to Josephine. Come on, Josephine, she said, her tone softer. Time to get back to the house and get supper ready. No meal gonna make itself. Henry stood in place. Ruby's words stuck with him. That fire burns up everything around you. Ruby's words weren't a warning. They were a prophecy. Time was an abstraction to Henry. The fields gobbled up his days, and while others were often chastised with a quick lashing from fainting from an empty stomach or heat, Henry managed to go unnoticed. The other souls in his shack insisted that if the white overseer who did not live on the plantations didn't know your name, you were doing well. Henry aimed to keep it that way. On another muggy day, as the humidity threatened to overwhelm him, Henry barely dodged the crack of a whip. He cried out, falling into the dirt, as the overseer's horse stood over him. Don't you hear me calling you? Henry shook his head no. Mr. Raglan wants to see you now. For what? Henry wondered aloud. Don't you ask me no questions, the overseer snapped, his whip cracking. Henry avoided the lash again, causing a collective gasp from the other souls, including the overseer. The man's nostrils flared. Go see Mr. Raglan. Henry made the long walk to the big house, his heart racing with anxiety. What could he have done wrong? Perhaps Mr. Raglan wanted him to breed. The thought of it made him nauseous. Ruby met him on the front steps of the house as Josephine was sweeping. It was his first time at the big house since arriving. He stared at the structure, resplendent and statuesque, its grandeur, a glided scar as the antebellum South's unbroken hegemony. Mr. Raglan wants me? Sure does, Ruby said, swinging open the door. Why? Henry asked. If you don't know, then you don't have anything to worry about. She guided him into the majestic interior. High ceilings arched down above them. Hardwood floors stretched beneath their feet, and a grand staircase featured a mahogany banister. Walls adorned with portraits of pale faces from every corner. The air was clean, free from the dirt and critters of the fields. Henry had never seen a house so grand. Gonna let Mr. Raglan know you're here. Ruby disappeared through a set of double doors, leaving Henry to stand alone. Come on now. A high-pitched voice called from the top of the stairs. A tall, chubby young white man, his attire snug and his black hair slicked back, pranced down the stairs. His tight pants and button-up shirt struggled against his skirt. Did you have them get the carriage ready? I can't miss my train. God, I just die of shame. Luke appeared at the top of the stairs, juggling 4 trunks. Yes, Junior, everything ready for you. Everything is ready for you, Junior corrected, sashaying down the steps. I know your mammy didn't teach you how to speak, but Christ listened to you. You sound like somebody raised you in a tobacco row. Junior turned and saw Luke struggling with the trunks. Oh, Lord, you're going to tip over trying to handle that yourself. Sometimes I think you're as delicate as me. Junior's squeaky laugh echoed as his head threw back. You, he pointed at Henry, help Luke. I really can't be late for the train, he said, adjusting his white gloves. Henry darted up the staircase and grabbed two of the heavy trunks. Luke offered a reassuring smile and wink as they descended the stairs. Ruby returned for Henry with Josephine right behind her. Oh, Ruby, exclaimed Junior, his southern dialect dropping as he examined himself in a mirror. Fetch Daddy and tell him I'm leaving. I've already said my goodbyes to Mother and must bid farewell to Daddy. But Mr. Raglan is busy. I don't care if he's with the latest whore on the plantation. I'm leaving for weeks and he needs to say goodbye to his only white child. Henry looked to Ruby and Luke for their reactions. They were stone-faced. Boy, be careful with that trunk, Junior screamed at Henry, his southern drawl thickening with his anger. Gonna get Mr. Raglan, Ruby said, her composure unshaken as Josephine followed. I swear, Luke, I don't know what you see in Ruby. She's dumb as a tick, and she got that gal following her like a damn dying puppy. Junior lusted at himself in the mirror again, admiring his appearance. Henry controlled a laugh as Luke shot him a quick look. Mr. Raglan appeared from another room. A look of repulsion crossed his face at the sight of Junior. Daddy, you weren't even going to say goodbye? Junior whined, slipping back into his affected speech. I'm running a business, Mr. Raglan's voice echoed. A business that's letting you go to New York City to do God knows what. Junior sighed. Junior, another high-pitched voice called. A stout woman in a revealing dress came down the stairs. Don't make your departure a big scene. But Mother, shut up, she snapped. It's hot and I need a drink. Ruby, get me some brandy. Yes, ma'am, Ruby replied, hurrying off with Josephine. God damn it, don't call me ma'am anything. Just call me Mistress Kitty. You don't need to be drinking right now, Kitty, Mr. Raglan said, his frustration evident. Quiet, Montgomery. I am the one who should be in New York City visiting my old friends. I was quite the dish in my time, Kitty said, patting her moist chest. Kitty's boisterous chatter bored Mr. Raglan. He turned to Junior. I don't approve of this trip, Junior. You don't approve of anything unless it's about his dirty plantation. You need to learn about the working of this plantation instead of prancing in New York City, Mr. Raglan snapped. And why are you wearing those white gloves? I'm looking into a suitable college, Junior spat, dismissing the question. I'm 18 and don't want to be tied to the fields. I have no interest in managing begrimed slaves, Junior embraced his father to say goodbye. You smell like a French whore, Mr. Raglan snapped. It's Jasmine, Junior retorted. Leave Junior alone, Kitty demanded. He's a creative child. Stop trying to turn everyone into a servant. Ma'am, I mean, Mistress Kitty, Ruby said, appearing quietly. No more brandy. What? Now what am I supposed to do? Kitty whined, giving Junior a brief hug before retreating up the stairs. I'll see you in a few weeks, Daddy. I left a long list for the servants. I want everything done when I arrive, from cleaning my room to building me a vanity. Come on, Luke. Get my bags in a carriage. Junior's hips swayed as he strutted out of the big house. Mr. Raglan fumed. Don't know why his mother allows him to act like this. He pointed at Henry. Follow me. Henry cast a fearful look to Ruby. Henry stepped into a den that stunk of cigars. Mr. Raglan slumped into a horsehair chair, fanning himself with his hat. Between his thick fingers, a drawing pen glinted as he rolled it over a folded deed, pressing, lifting, pressing again, as if testing its point. Henry stood in the center of the room, head bowed and hands at his sides. Mr. Raglan threw his hat onto a nearby chair, then flicked the drawing pen onto the desk before pulling out a cigar and matches from his baggy overalls. He lit the cigar, took a deep puff and glared at Henry, smoke curling around his eyes. David and Solomon ran away. Henry racked his brain trying to remember who David and Solomon were. Don't know David and Solomon, he said, masking his accent. What you mean you don't know David and Solomon? You boys sleep in the same shack? Henry moved uncomfortably. Then it came to him. The two men sprawled shirtless on the dirt floor. David, the one who seemed quieter, more observant. Solomon with the gray eyes, sharp tongue and testing. He remembered the brief moment on his first night when they had locked eyes and how intently they were sizing him up. They hadn't spoken since. Sorry, sir, forgot their names. You see anything? Hear anything? No, sir. You see them when you got up? No, sir. You lying to me? No, sir. Don't know nothing, just do my work. Mr. Ragland scrutinized Henry's face. Seeking any sign of deceit, he had been warned of Henry's reputation, but with no previous encounters to judge, he didn't know what to think. Henry's silence left him puzzled. Go back to Ruby. She got a job for you. Henry left the smoky den, calm washing over him. Despite his fear, he admired David and Solomon for their escape. Everything okay? Ruby asked. Don't know nothing, honestly, Henry said. I believe you. Nobody likes you enough to tell you they're running away. Ruby's laughter rang out, making Josephine softly giggle. Don't care if nobody likes me. Boy, I'm just messing with you. Mr. Ragland wants you to help. Luke cleaned Junior's room. Clean his room? Henry was confused. Might be wondering why you gotta clean somebody's room, but let me tell you, it's a pig pen. It's about the nastiest sight you ever gonna lay eyes on. Henry followed Ruby and Josephine up the staircase. He marveled at the kerosene lamps built onto the walls. The hallway was lined with more portraits of the most colorless, grayest people he had ever seen. Ruby opened the door to Junior's room. Clothes were thrown across the floor, spoiled food in every corner, slop jars, some overturned, were flies' dens. A sheetless bed on a wooden frame stood in the middle of the room. A single small window struggled to shed light on the disarray, while kerosene lamps stood atop the dresser. Henry stood stunned and overwhelmed, unsure where to start. Just then Luke entered, panting and burdened with cleaning supplies. I'm sure I'm glad Junior's gone, Luke said with relief. Surprised he didn't take you with him, Ruby remarked. In New York City, slavery isn't classy. That would make him look like Southern trash. If he brought his slave boy, Luke replied. You remember Henry? Ruby asked. I do, Luke nodded. How come you aren't helping me clean, Ruby? Because I'm going dancing in the river. What do you reckon? Me and Josephine got to cook and clean. Josephine nodded. With David and Solomon gone, I got even more work to do. They did so much in the house. Ruby turned on her heel with Josephine mimicking her and closing the door, leaving Luke and Henry to tackle the mess. As they locked eyes, the world around them paused. They stood in silence. They were a similar height, their builds nearly identical. Henry stared into Luke's pupils. They had met only once before, yet their familiarity was palpable. Did Mr. Ragland ask you about David and Solomon running away? Luke asked, breaking the silence. Don't know nothing. I knew they were up to something. They were whispering in corners and food was missing. They worked in the fields, but also in the house. They did some good work, but they had enough of Magnolia Row. God be with them. Henry shrugged, ready for his orders to work. You're from Africa, right? Luke asked as he approached the stored bed with a bucket of water. Yeah, you know where Africa is? Henry responded, trying to erase his accent while following Luke to the bed. Of course I know where Africa is, Luke answered. I wasn't born a slave. Born in Africa. Wasn't meant to be here. None of us meant to be here, Luke said, his hands working as he poured powdered soap over the stain. None of us are meant to be slaves. Well, you ain't really a slave, Henry said. You think I'm free? You ain't on the fields. I do work, though, and I always have Junior on my back. I'd rather be working in the house. I reckon we all want to be somewhere else. I know Ruby does. They got her in a small cabin in the back of the house so Mr. Ragland can do what he wants with her. Do what he wants? You know what that means, Henry, Luke said with a dead stare. Henry paused. He knew. He saw the vile acts at every plantation he suffered through. He could smell the scum in Mr. Ragland's grin before the man spoke. You sleep in Ruby's shack, Henry asked. Luke paused from scrubbing. When Junior's here, I sleep in this room on the floor. His hand motioned to the grimy shackles near the end of the bed. Sometimes I'm chained to his bedside, not allowed to wear nothing but a shirt. When Junior is gone, I sleep in Ruby's cabin. Henry could see the scars on Luke's wrists and neck. The cruelty was clear. Captivity was more than metal. They were tools of degradation. Luke felt Henry's pity and grew uncomfortable. Tell me about Africa. Luke said, shifting the conversation. I don't know anyone who remembers Africa. No one had ever asked Henry about Africa. On the other plantations, he was cast aside as an enigma wrapped in the dark skin of a troublemaker. They said he had too much African in him, as if it were a curse. But Luke was different. As they scrubbed and cleaned Junior's foul room, Henry smoked of the smell of his village, something you'd never find on Magnolia Row. Sweet and intoxicating, a rich aroma easing the storms inside you, even on your harshest of days. It was the smell of light, earth, and sun. Henry described the colors of his homeland, vibrant yellows, forest greens, and browns that spoke of the earth itself. Everything was a part of the land, a living, breathing canvas of life. Every hue had a voice. The food, even when it was days old, it always looked and smelled fresh. The flavors were rich, like tasting the very spirit of the land. His thoughts drifted to his family. Henry was the youngest of his brothers and sisters. Their smiles were sunbursts. Laughter filled the air like drums. They were his world, each of them with their own way of making him feel loved and protected. They always said one day he'd earn a village of his own, perhaps become a king. They knew he was stubborn. He'd never be content as a mere follower. The ache in his voice grew as he spoke of his father, whose presence had been so commanding as a god, a loud man, his voice booming across mouths, a force of nature. He loved to sing and dance, leading ceremonies with a spirit that could make the ground shake. And his mother, she ruled with a quick tongue and a heart full of grace. Lost in the sorrow, he wondered out loud where they were today, how they managed after his mother's death, and how they handled their grief after he vanished. A thread of vulnerability connected Henry to Luke. The pain of it all was a lump in his throat. I want to go home. Henry and Luke found themselves sitting on the floor of Junior's room, now half clean. Luke placed his hand gently upon Henry. A spark shot through Henry. He could not remember the last time he felt someone's touch. He took in Luke, studied the movements on his face. He looked perfectly drawn, no lines like a painting. He could be a friend in my village, Henry thought. It's all right. Luke's voice had a soothing cadence. I know how it feels. I may not come from Africa, but I understand. Henry's response was a nod. You know how many years you got on you? He asked. Mr. Ragland's record says I'll be 19 on August 21st, just a couple months away. Don't know mine. Well then, Luke declared with a squeeze of Henry's hand, we'll be the same age from now on. And when is my 19? Same day as me, August 21st. So now we got the same birthday and age. Fine by me, Luke, Henry said, a smile breaking through his face. As Luke withdrew his hand, they both stood, matching each other's height. We better get back to work before Mr. Ragland asks questions, Luke said. I'll be walking back with you to the fields tonight. Henry stayed quiet as they turned back to their work. And that is Burn Down Master's House by Clay Cane. And as you listened here in that entryway, Clay took us right into the meat of it. When he said misinformation is an old, strong tool, it distorts history, manipulates narratives, and fuels power. I talk all the time about the power of misinformation, and when people use misinformation to control the narrative on who or whom you are, that is a powerful and a dangerous tool. So I love that with this, he does not ease us in. We are immediately establishing this system. So we're talking about not just slavery as a backdrop, but we're looking at slavery as an infrastructure. And the reason why we know that is because we're immediately into this world where humans are being what? Categorized by function, right? They're going to be categorized by function. They're going to be measured, evaluated, and assigned a value. And that's exactly what it is that we start off there talking with Henry and Susie, right? Henry is going to be sold because he could not breed. Now, it wasn't necessarily that he could not breed, but mentally, strategically, it was something there that was going on that he could not. Not because of rebellion, not because of disobedience, not because of moral failure, but because of productivity, because his body was not going to increase the capital right? Because it wasn't going to increase the capital of the owner's worth. Then that is why they sold them. And that is one of the things that it forces us to confront, that a lot of times American history likes to go by, is that enslaved people, right? We were not just used for labor. It was reproductive assets. Basically, their bodies were economic strategy. Breeding, it was not incidental. It was intentional. It was structured. It was policy, right? And see, when we try to avoid that part of history, that's when we avoid understanding just how engineered this system was. So I appreciate that with this first chapter immediately off the bat, Clay makes that immediately clear that this was not random cruelty. We're talking about organized power. And so with that, again, misinformation is not new. We talk about it now, like we talked about social media disease. It's always been used as a weapon, right? Those false narratives and justified massacres are, come on, we talk about Emmett Till, right? Those exaggerated stories that fueled mob violence, the propaganda of, like, I don't know, COINTELPRO being used against the civil rights movement. Rumors have always been used to maintain racial hierarchy. If you want to talk about, and I do love that this book is specifically calling out some of those times in the past where we have been rebellious and fought against and stood. And a lot of times they don't talk about, like, there was the 1739, the Stono Rebellion. That was a major slave uprising that was in South Carolina that was led by some of the African soldiers from the Congo. And they actually, some of them did escape and make it towards Florida, because at that time, Florida was actually being used where if you could escape to Florida, you would be able to maintain your freedom there because of the Spaniards. So that was like the Exodus movement that was back in 1879. And that was like a mass migration of African Americans from the South, right? I like how it calls out, it also brings up mind of, there was the Elaine Massacre, right? There was the Wilmington coup. And that was another successful coup of the United States, where armed white supremacists overthrew a biracial government and massacred the black residents, right? So this makes you see a pattern in history of controlling the story, controlling the public, controlling the outcome. So it reminds us that narrative has always been power. And then that leads us to a question that makes you raise, why aren't more stories of liberation told? Of course, we learn about plantations. We learn about presidents. We learn about American history, right? But where are the stories that centered on Black people that resisted, right? Are those that talk about the ones of us that organized, and what did that look like? What did it look like for us to be calculated? It is more. It's about more than just the stories that's not being told about the things that we created in this society. But what about those stories that's being minimized that tells about how we resisted against what we went through? And we know that those stories are minimized often because liberation narratives destabilize, right? If the enslaved people are portrayed like we were thinkers and planners and technicians, right? Then the narrative of this passive suffering, it collapses. And that's what we learned about and start to sort of talk about in this first chapter, is we're not going to flatten this into just one victim alone. So even within that confinement, there's this awareness of reading the room, right? A rebellion doesn't always begin with fire. Sometimes that shift is just by one. So we start off small, but I definitely love the way this book is taking us in. So again, this is Clay King, Burn Down Master's House. I want to say thank you for tuning in to Black Art is Lit. My name is Nykieria Chaney. You can find us on all social media. I'm at Nykieria, and you can also get us, that's Black Art is Lit, BLACKARTISLIT. And then you can also check us out at our website, at my website, that is NykiriaChaney.com. Thank you so much for tuning in to Black Art is Lit.